With new vaccine policies and guidelines being released every few weeks, it's easy to feel overwhelmed keeping up with it all, and it can even lead to job stress. It's even more confusing when information is coming from multiple sources. So employment lawyer Lior Samfiru joins us now to break down some common myths and misconceptions about vaccine policies and how it impacts your work life. Good morning, Lior. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Candice.
So as I mentioned, we have a list. Let's start with Ontario's vaccine passport, which was just announced. So let's clear this one up early. The vaccine passport applies to employees. Is that myth or fact?
So that is a myth, actually a very big one. The vaccine passport is probably the biggest piece of news that came out of the government, provincial government this week. But the government has decided that while they're going to impose restrictions for those that are going to visit restaurants and nightclubs and gyms, that same requirement does not apply to employees of those establishments. So right now, the law does not require you, if you work at a restaurant or a gym or a nightclub, etc., to get vaccinated, and employers that decide to take that obligation on themselves by imposing vaccine mandates may actually be doing something illegal and discriminatory. So we have to remember, to visit a restaurant, yes, you need a vaccine passport. To work at one, as things stand right now, that's not the case.
Okay, yeah, once again, to dine indoors, you do need to be vaccinated. Let's go to the next one. There is still a lot of confusion about the vaccine mandates in the workplace, as you just touched on. The next common belief is that your employer can't fire you if you don't get vaccinated, or that being unvaccinated is not cause for termination. Lior, is that myth or fact?
So I just said the fact that an employer cannot necessarily impose a vaccine mandate. So one would think that you can't be let go if you don't get vaccinated. But the fact is that you cannot prevent an employer from terminating employment. Therefore, if an employer does draw a line in the sand, an employee will lose their job. Now, there could be recourse afterwards. There could be damages owing. But an employee ultimately has to decide whether they are willing to lose their job. Employees are already losing their job. You can't prevent that. So that is a reality that employees have to face and decide what is ultimately best for them.
Here's another. Fully vaccinated employees can start traveling without informing their employer. What would you say to this?
That is certainly another myth. An employee and employer still have to be open and honest with each other about traveling and certainly about other symptoms as well. An employer has an interest in ensuring workplace safety, of course, and ensuring contact tracing if needed. So the employees still need to continue to notify their employer about traveling, about being out of province, out of country, about being at the airport, about having symptoms, even if they are fully vaccinated. So being vaccinated is not permission to just do whatever you want without telling your employer of things that the employer must or may need to know. Doing so and not telling your employer, that in fact can be cause for discipline. So being honest and truthful, always the best advice.
And Lior, say worst case scenario, the relationship between employer and employee does end up in termination. We're also hearing the common belief that employees are only owed 1 or 2 weeks pay in severance when they're let go. Is that myth or fact?
Yeah, that is probably the biggest myth in employment law, the idea that severance, oh, it's only a week or two. No, severance can be as much as 24 months pay based on a number of factors, including your age, your position, and the length of your employment. So it has nothing to do with a week per year or 2 weeks per year. If you lose your job, you could be owed as much as that. And even if it's because of not being vaccinated. So it's important for employees and employers to understand that. Candace, a lot of employers don't understand the exposure that they have if they let someone go. So no 1 week, no 2 weeks, that is simply a myth.